Very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Varun Pawar, and welcome back to my channel, which is Certified Business Analysis Professional. And so far, we have done with the three activities under the Requirement Analysis and Design Definition Knowledge area. And the first three activities that we have done is Specify and Model Requirements, in which we are talking about the specification and the designing of the solution. Then we talked about the verification of the requirement, where we said like it's a internal business acceptance testing verify checklist for the business analyst to verify whether the acceptance criteria is matching. Then the validate requirement, where we take a sign off from the stakeholders or the actual users. You can relate it with the user acceptance testing. And then today we'll discuss defined requirement architecture. Requirement architecture, and and these are the inputs. Requirements, it could be any type. The solution is scope that sets the boundaries, like the requirement should not go out of this. Means if we have said like, okay, these things we have to do, four requirements we have to do, you should not add the fifth requirement. Business analysis information management approach, and this is one another input, which is from the BAPM, business analysis planning and monitoring knowledge area, where we have talked about the information management. And then we get the requirement architecture. So what is the architecture? So you might be familiar with the architecture that we create for the home or house or building. So suppose this is a house, and we are saying there is like bedroom, kitchen, garage, and hall. These are the four different individual models. When we combine all those four models, it will create a complete house. So this is the combination of all those uh, will help you to achieve the objective. That is, if our objective is to create a house, right? Understanding from different perspective, like right now this is bedroom, hall, garage, and kitchen, it's stated. When you click on a bedroom, you will see what is inside the bedroom. Like we have a bed, we have a mirror, we have phone, we have the table, right? We have the quilt, everything is there inside. So if that view is being presented to you, so that is known as view, right? The detailed information. The bedroom itself is a viewpoint. When you click on this, that will open the complete view for the kitchen. And this entire bedroom, we say that's a basically a uh, in terms of defined requirement architecture, this is known as a model, right? So here you can see four different models is combined together to complete one uh, house, right? So now, thinking that image in mind, the purpose of defined requirement architecture is to ensure that the requirements collectively support one another to fully achieve the objectives. Requirement architecture is the structure of all of the requirements of a change. Requirement architecture fits the individual models and specifications together to ensure that all of the requirements from a single whole that support the overall business objectives and produces a useful outcome for stakeholders. Business analysts use a requirement architecture to understand which models are appropriate for the domain, solution scope, and audience, organize requirements into structures relevant to different stakeholders, illustrate how requirements and models interact with and relate to each other, and show how the parts fit together into a meaningful whole. Ensure the requirements work together to achieve the overall objectives, and make trade-offs decisions about requirements while considering the overall objectives. So requirement architecture is a bit complicated topic and the activity. So please be with me and try to focus on each and every line, because that will help you to understand it. And in examination, if you find any difficult question, by my this session, you will able to relate it and answer it very easily. Requirement architecture is not intended to demonstrate traceability, but rather to show how elements work in harmony with one another to support the business requirement, and to structure them in various ways to align the viewpoints of different stakeholders. So when we are talking about the models, the viewpoints and the views, these are not this requirement architecture is not for the purpose of the traceability. Traceability is basically it's from one requirement to finally go to the business objective, how that one requirement is related to, right? So like from business requirement we get the um, we have a stakeholder requirement as well, then we have a solution requirement, then we have a transition requirement. So these requirements finally leads to you the one business objective. So there it makes sense for the traceability, but defined requirement architecture, it's not for the traceability. Traceability is often used as the mechanism to represent and manage these relationships. Traceability proves that every requirement links back to an objective and shows how an objective was met. Traceability does not prove the solution is cohesive as a whole that will work. So again, the same architecture for you to understand. When we are talking about the bedroom, this is basically a viewpoint. When you click on a bedroom, that will show you a complete design, interior design. That would be a view, right? And there are something about the notations as well. So notations are some common terminologies, like when we say okay sink, or we say dishwasher, or we say induction. These are the kitchen stuff, right? When we talk about the couch or sofa or table, so we are talking about the hall. Similarly, when we are talking about okay the like car charger or charging point, or the garage, or a cycle stand, or something, so we are talking about the garage. So these are the notations. You will able to relate it when I'll finally come to the requirement architecture, how that is defined. So just keep this picture in mind, that will help you. For an example, now when I click on a bedroom, it show you the bedroom. So this is a view, right? So when I click on bedroom, that's a viewpoint. When it shows you complete picture of interior designing, what stuffs is inside that, that is a view. So kitchen would be having a different view. So now related, this is different model, this is a different model, the hall having different model, and the garage is different model. So these different models we have, when we combine all those models together, it would it would lead to the requirement architecture, complete requirement architecture of a house. So the collection of these views, one, two, three, four, the collection of these views is known as requirement architecture, because the information is in very detailed here, right? So understand this collection of these views is known as requirement architecture. So define requirement architecture. These are the input and output. So the first input is requirements. Requirements could be of any type. So define how the business analysis information including requirements and models will be stored and accessed. Every requirement should be stated once and only once and incorporated into the requirements architecture so that the entire set may be evaluated for completeness. It must be considered, solution scope must be considered to ensure the requirement architecture is aligned with the boundaries of the desired solution. Then we have architecture management software. There are a lot of softwares in the market that support this requirement architecture. Modeling software can help to manage the volume, complexity, and version of the relationship within the requirement architecture. Then when any organization is defining the requirement architecture, they are bounded by some legislative rules and the regulation. If that is financial organization like a bank, then bank is they have to follow the regulation laid down by the central banks or the reserve banks. Then we have methodologies and the frameworks. So predetermined set of models. Just for the analogy, we have used kitchen, right? And then we have a hall, then bedroom. These are different models we said. So in similar way, we have standard models, industry standardized models used in the requirement to define the requirement architecture. So predetermined set of models and relationship between the models to be used to represent different viewpoints. So like I said, the kitchen is one viewpoint, right? So for that viewpoint, we have a kitchen model that would tell like how the elements of that view inside the view will be associated with each other's. And then we have the output, which is requirements architecture, the requirements and the interrelationships among them, as well as any contextual information that is recorded. Now, I think you will able to relate requirements, viewpoints, and views. A viewpoint is a set of conventions that define how requirements will be represented, how these representation will be organized, and how they will be related. Viewpoints provide templates for addressing the concern of particular stakeholder group. Requirement viewpoints frequently include standards and guidelines for the model types used for the requirements, attributes that are included and consistently used in different models, model notations that are used, and analytical approaches used to identify and maintain relevant relationship among the models. No single viewpoint alone can form an entire architecture. Each viewpoint is stronger for some aspect of the requirement and weaker for other. So you can relate it with, if the kitchen model is there, that would cover all the kitchen stuff. That would not cover the bedroom stuff, right? So for bedroom stuff, you have to have a separate model for that. So, so one model is stronger in one thing, another model would be stronger in another thing. And all the stakeholders can, only when they go through all the models, then only they will able to understand the complete picture. So it says each viewpoint is stronger for some aspect of the requirements and weaker for others, as different groups of stakeholders have different concerns. Example of viewpoints included, so business process model, data models and information, user interactions including use cases and or user experience, audit and security and business models. We'll talk about these later. So each of those viewpoints has different model notations and techniques. So when we are talking about the notations, understand if I'm talking about the sink or the dishwasher or the induction or the chimney. So these are the notations for the kitchen. Each of those, and we talk about the couch, the table. So these are for the hall. When talk about the bed, quilt, right, all those stuff, these are for the bedroom. And each is important to ensure a cohesive final solution. The solution would likely not be success if the business analyst only looked at the business process viewpoint. Business analyst has to look through all the models, all the viewpoints. Lot of information in a single viewpoint would make it overwhelming to analyze and contain information irrelevant to particular stakeholder group. Now, in business term, let's leave the house architecture, other like if the kitchen viewpoint is there. So if someone is like the housewives who is very who's a chef or who loves to make things, so he will definitely want to understand the kitchen viewpoint, what is inside that. But in our business analysis term and industry domains, there we have different viewpoints, like we said, like business model, the data flow model, the activity flow models. So suppose I am interested in to understand the use cases, the stories, how those are related. So I would be focusing more on the user stories model. So we'll talk that later. Lot of information in a single viewpoint, and in a single viewpoint, suppose that's a kitchen viewpoint, and you start providing the bedroom information and the hall or garage information in that same viewpoint. When user click on kitchen and he try to see all those, he will get confused with that lot of information, because He clicked on that just for his meaningful information. So that we have to understand. The actual requirements and design from a chosen viewpoints are referred to as a view. A collection of views, right? That I said, the collection of views, because that's very detailed, uh, makes up the requirement architecture. So this is very important line you have to understand, and you have to also understand actual requirements and design from a chosen viewpoint referred to as a view. So when you click on a kitchen, you see the entire kitchen information, right? That is a view. And in a similar way, different models have different views. Kitchen, hall, when you combine all those together, that forms a requirement architecture. BA align, coordinate, and structure requirements into meaningful views for the various stakeholders. In short, the viewpoints tell BA what information they should provide for the each stakeholder group to address their concerns, while views describes the actual requirements and designs that are produced. Again, for your reference, these are the different models. Bedroom is a viewpoint. When you click on bedroom, it will show you the view, the complete view, and the collection of all those views is referred to as a requirement architecture. Now, understand from the business analysis perspective, we have different stakeholders. Now, assume this way that requirements, these many requirements we have, okay, and these requirements is forming a one solution altogether. So when we say like list of requirements is tagged to a single release, so that single release we are targeting to a one single solution. So understand in that way that lot of requirements are there combined to form one release, and that release is finally a solution. These requirements is specific to different stakeholders. So suppose we have different stakeholders that say tester, developer, business developer, architecture, product manager, product owner. These are different roles in an organization, and different person want to see the different information. The requirement set is also supported by the additional information, which is like data flow diagram, test cases, acceptance criteria, business context, architectural flow, product requirement documentation, software requirement documentation, linked stories, business cases, business values, solution, and measurements. So these many requirements supported by these additional information to check. Now, just assume that you are a tester. So what information you would be interested in? You would be interested in the test cases for these stories, the acceptance criteria for these stories, and the linked stories, or it could be the bugs associated, or could be other information associated that tester might be interested in. So if we start showing tester a architectural flow or a data flow diagram, that doesn't make sense for him, right? So that's why we said like for each viewpoint, we don't fill it up with lot of information. This is only for the relevant information for relevant stakeholder. So that's just an analogy. We said viewpoint. These are the viewpoints. When tester click on his viewpoint, he will get this information. When developer click on this in viewpoint, he will get the solution, architecture flow, and data flow diagrams. When a business developer click on this his viewpoint, he'll able to see business cases, business values, measurements, and solution. Architecture, solution architecture, if click on his viewpoint, he will able to see architectural flow and data flow diagrams. Similarly for product manager and product owners. Now, this is just to set an analogy so that you are able to understand what I'm trying to say. Now, in the this home construction viewpoints, we said the kitchen, hall, garage, bedroom. These are the viewpoints. When you click on those, you get the proper detail. In a similar way, in terms of business analysis, we have the viewpoints, but these just for your understanding I have created this way. But the standardized industry standards for the viewpoints is this: business process model, data model and information, user interaction including use cases and user experience, audit and security, and business models. So if any person want to see how the business process is flowing or how that is going on, to see that the user has to click on business process model, and that will show the complete picture. We'll come to that. So here, so the one standard business viewpoint is business process model. So here you can see these are the starting point, this is the end point, this is the starting point, this is the end point, this is the decision node. So this way, and the activity flowed, these are the flow, forward flow arrows represented by. So these are basically the notations that we are saying. So if you find anything like start, end, decision, and this flow, this means you immediately can say this is a business process models. This diagram or this model is a business process model. So these many requirements, if we fit it into one solution, then how that solution will look like, what would be the process flow diagram for that, that would be represented in this form, and which comes under the business process models. In a similar form, the data models and the information. So the same set of requirements again, they have a data flow diagrams that could be logical or uh, that could be conceptual or physical. So these are in the process, right? It's represented by the process, how that information is flowing, right? So this way it's been processed, and immediately when you see these triangle rectangular boxes, this flow, any such arrows here and there, you will able to understand this is data flow diagram or data models and information. Similarly, if you want to see from the user interaction, including use cases and the stories and user experience map, I would say, then you would see this kind of model, which says these are the actors and these are the what these actors are doing with the. So this represent what use cases are there, like what actor is trying to do with with any application that they are trying to build. So if you see this thing, then these are the notations. You will immediately say these are the use cases or user experience maps. Similarly, the business process model is there. So this is the business model canvas, right? And the business users, if they will able to see this, they will able to relate when they are reading through the requirements, right? So this way you have to understand what is architecture, requirement architecture. So there are a lot of things. The first, I have tried to relate it with the uh, generic layman architecture that we build a home and how that works. Then I talked about the viewpoints. Then I talked about the views. Then I try to relate it with the business analysis, um, standard viewpoints and standard models, and then how the different views, when we combine that, form a requirement architecture. Different requirements all together form one solution, and that's how it relates together. Now, if you gone through all those and put those things in mind, let's move ahead. Template architecture. So this is element. An architectural framework is a collection of viewpoints. So when we say that the collection of views is a requirement architecture, in a similar way, collection of viewpoints, right? The viewpoints are different models we have used: business model, business process model, and then security model. Then we have uh, the use case or user experience model, right? So when you combine all those models together, viewpoints together, these form a architecture framework. And this is standard across an industry sector or organization. BA can treat frameworks as predefined templates to start from in defining their architecture. Similarly, the framework can be populated with domain-specific information to form a collection of views that is an even more useful template to build architecture from. It is accurate because the information is already populated in it. Now, the completeness is the another element. An architecture helps ensure that a set of requirements is complete. The entire set of requirements should be able to understood by the audience in a way that it can be determined that the set is cohesive and tells a full story. The requirements architecture should take into account any dependencies between requirements that could keep the objectives from being achieved. Anyway, another element, relate and verify requirements relationship. So each requirement, whether the requirement is a business need, then it flows down to the solution requirement, then it flows down to functional, non-functional transition requirement, but finally achieve the business objective. So now how there are different requirements, and how those different requirements, suppose you are creating a mobile application and you want to create one login page, then you have a login page, and the business requirement is need a login screen. So you create a login page with the username and the password fields. When you enter that and press submit, then it should validate the password with the database. And then if the password is correct, that should help you to log into the main dashboard of the application. So this is a complete flow, and in this complete flow, every event, every point, different points, every navigation is altogether a different requirement. Be it create a login screen, be it if wrong password is entered, show up a error message, that is another requirement. Third is how this password will be validated in database. So these are set of different requirements to create a login screen. Now, so these what is this username, what is the password, what is the login screen, these should be properly defined, right? So there is a relationship and the type of relationship is described. Necessary is something like the password, to check the password with the database, that is very necessary. So that is a necessary relationship. The relationship is necessary for understanding the requirements holistically. Correct, the elements do have the relationship described. Unambiguous, there are no relationship that link elements in two different and conflicting ways. Consistent relationship are described in the same way using the same set of standard description as defined in the viewpoints. So let's say need a login screen. You create a login screen where you said ask for the username, ask for the password. You have defined all those correctly in detailed documentation somewhere. Then when you enter a username password, you click submit, then it goes for validate password with the database. And when the database you're trying to validate, and if something is incorrect, it says incorrect password. So all those three things are different requirements. How they are related with each others, you cannot create another flow of the same requirement, because that would be then conflicting, and you cannot validate the password first before the username, entering the username password. You cannot do this prior to this step. So that is the how the consistency is being maintained, how the sequence is being maintained, what is the correct flow, how these steps are linked or related together. So these four or five points is defining all those things. Business analysis information architecture, that's probably last element for defined requirement architecture. The structure of the business analysis information is also an information architecture. This type of architecture is defined as part of the task plan business analysis information management, and somewhere you would able to find that link on top. It defines relationship for types of information such as requirements, design, type of models, and elicitation results. Understanding this type of information structure helps to ensure that the full set of the requirements is complete by verifying the relationships are complete. It is useful to start defining this architecture before setting up infrastructure such as requirement lifecycle management tool, architecture management software, or document repository. So if before you set up your internal tools like requirement lifecycle management tool, somewhere it's like known as Zira, right? Somewhere it's QC, some people use different tools. So before you opt for these tools, you should know how the requirement architecture will look like for your organization. For the banking, we have a different architecture. We might need different tools. For the biomedical or the pharmaceutical organization, we might need a different architecture. So we have to choose that architecture management tools accordingly. Now, who are the stakeholders that participate in defining requirement architecture? So we have domain subject matter expert, implementation subject matter expert, the project manager, the sponsor, and the tester may assist in defining and confirming the requirements architecture. Any stakeholder may also use the requirement architecture to assess the completeness of the requirements. And finally, the techniques. Data modeling, used to describe the requirement structure as it relates to data. Functional decomposition, used to break down an organizational unit, product scope, or other elements into its components part. You can relate it with the views. Your data model is related with the models, viewpoints. Interviews, used to define the requirement structure collaboratively. Organizational modeling, used to understand the various organizational units, stakeholders, and their relationship, which might help define relevant viewpoints, right? If you know that which type of stakeholders are there in an organization, accordingly you will able to derive your viewpoints. Scope modeling, used to identify the elements and boundaries of the requirements architecture. Workshop, used to define the requirements structure collaboratively. So that's it from the defined requirement architecture. This is very important to understand, and please relate it, otherwise it would lead to confusion. So, and I hope you are liking my videos. Please support me by liking my channel, giving some comments, and sharing my videos. In next session, we'll continue with the requirement analysis and design definition, another activity that is after when design options, and then another activity after that, and then finally we'll end up with the requirement analysis and design definition. So keep watching my video and channel. Thanks for watching. See you in next session.